friends and colleagues. During these pandemic times, sometimes we get emails or phone calls asking us to go and interpret depositions. For the most part, the deposition requests that we all get nowadays, at least in the United States, are for distance depositions. That is, that we participate remotely from our own homes or offices by one of the different platforms that there exist. That's the rule. But not long ago, I got a phone call from one of the agencies. This is an agency that I usually don't work with, but they have my information because they request my services, as they say, as a last option. In this case, they were calling me for a deposition that would have to take place 2 days after the phone call. To me, that's the first bad symptom, because usually I like to get plenty of notice so I can get prepared for any kind of an assignment. So an assignment that is announced to you for next day or 2 days later usually doesn't look like a very professional attitude. However, in this case, since I know that I am like the just in case, after nobody else can do it or want to do it interpreter, I understand that when they contact me, it will be for that type of jobs. Well, in this case, the representative from the agency told me that they needed my assistance 2 days later for a deposition that could be in one of the offices in downtown Chicago where I live. Well, the thing here was that she told me ahead of time not to worry, that it would be a team interpreting event, because she does know that I will never accept to do a deposition solo, because it's very taxing, because it's not professional, because it goes against everything that I stand for. Especially nowadays that we are doing distance interpreting, that is so much more exhausting, that is so much more complicated. I just cannot understand anybody agreeing to do a deposition solo distance. I never like them when it's in person, much less now that it is a distance type of service. But anyway, the lady told me that I would be one of 2 interpreters working this deposition. The next thing I asked her is, okay, what platform are you guys going to use? And she replied, oh, there will be no platform. This is a request for an in-person deposition. I did ask again to make sure that I understood correctly, and she ratified that it was a request for an in-person interpreting service for a deposition in downtown Chicago in the middle of the pandemic. Of course, as soon as I learned this circumstance, I declined the assignment. She told me that she understood that I was declining the assignment and that I shouldn't worry, that health is the most important concern nowadays. And it was all fine. I was not going to take the assignment, but then out of curiosity, I asked her, so are there a lot of requests now for in-person work? Because my understanding is that everything is still being done at a distance. And she replied that there are some everyday more requests for in-person depositions. And I asked her, are there any interpreters that are agreeing to do that type of an assignment? And she said yes, that there were quite a few that would be more than willing and with no hesitation would agree to go to the attorney's office or to the court reporter's office and do the deposition. I was astonished. And I was astonished, my friends, because we're in the middle of a pandemic. And when you agree to go and do a deposition in this, under these circumstances, you will be in a very enclosed environment. You will be in an office or in a board meeting room, or you will be in a court reporter's office. And in these facilities, you will be in there probably with no ventilation, at least no open windows, in very close quarters, together with at the least another 4 individuals, usually another 6 to 8 individuals at the least. You will be talking, everybody will be talking, you will be sitting next to some of them and across the table from some others, and people will be speaking in to a certain level loud voice, so that the interpreter can hear it, the parties can hear it, and the court reporter can hear it and record it. That's very, very dangerous, because that's how the virus gets transmitted, and it's a very contagious thing, and it's life-threatening. Obviously, that surprised me that many people, especially many interpreters, would be willing to do it. This lady from the agency told me that many of the attorneys' request was accompanied by a statement where they would say, well, according to city ordinance and the health policy here in the city, now it is okay to have gatherings of less than 10 people indoors. And again, as we all know, a lot of it has to do with politics and very little with public health. But it's still your prerogative to say no. I would always say no to these situations because I don't care how much they are paying you. There's not a single deposition that is worth it risking my health, my life, my future. On the other hand, there is no valid reason why a deposition cannot be held at a distance. Depositions can easily be interpreted from your own home or office without having to be in close quarters with all these people exposed to the virus. There is no reason for it other than convenience, stubbornness, or a political statement on the part of one or both of the parties. And that's to me just unacceptable. So, I encourage you to only do distance depositions at this time, at least in the United States. But later on, because eventually we are going to have to relax this once that we have a vaccine, or at least that we flatten the curve, which seems like light years away from us here in the United States, but eventually it will happen. At that time, I still advise you to be very cautious. What would I do at that time? And I suppose if you want to risk your life because you think that the $500-600 that you're going to make at a deposition makes it worth, then I would advise you to at least take some precautions with you and follow this protocol that I will follow once that the restrictions are eased and the public health officials say that it's okay to go out there again and start working. I am not doing it now, I will do it later, but this advice that I'm going to share now would apply, in my opinion, reluctantly to those who decide to do it now. First of all, please show up with a mask and wear the mask at all times. Wear the mask during the position, talk with the mask on, do not take it off. Please use the mask at all times. You don't know what all these people are doing or where they come from, or if they have been exposed, maybe they're asymptomatic but they already have the virus. In fact, I would suggest you take an extra mask just in case, because this is serious business. Second, before you even go, I would ask what kind of setting we are going to have. I would ask where is the office, because if the office is in a high rise, that's very possible if you live in a big city, then you may want to inquire about the elevator, because that's another concerning thing. You don't want to be in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic in an elevator with another 10 people. So you have to make sure that precautions have been taken and that at the most there will be 1 or 2 more people in the elevator with you and everybody will be masked. The next thing you want to know is if there will be somebody monitoring people's temperature. And this could be at the law office or co-reporter's office where somebody will have the thermometer, or if this is in a high rise, you have to make sure that the building management has made all the arrangements so that as people are coming into the building, their temperature is being taken. This is extremely important. And I know some people might have the virus and be asymptomatic, but at least you're improving your chances of not being sick by requesting this. You gotta make sure that if they're going to do it at the law office or at the co-reporter's office, that this will take place at the largest room, usually like a boardroom meeting, so that you can have a lot of space between you and the rest of the people. This is essential. Please do not do it in a very small room with a small table where you're going to be confined to a very little and dangerous space. If that's the case, and with masks and all that, make sure that you do not sit at the table. You gotta explain to them that you're going to sit far from the table, as far as you can, to avoid that proximity with everybody else and keep yourself safe doing this. You can tell everybody that they will have to speak very loudly and they will have to be very sharp because you're going to speak through the mask. If they want to talk without the mask, that's their problem. Just make sure that they don't look at you when they do it. If they're looking the other way or they're looking on a different direction, it's risky, but that's a little bit better. I would advise that you do the following. Take your portable transmitter, and if you do depositions regularly, you're probably a court or a legal interpreter, and this kind of portable equipment is used by you. If you don't have it, this is called either an interpreter portable equipment, or it's also known as the tour guide equipment. So you take the transmitter and you take a receiver, at least for the person you're going to interpret for. If there's more than one, you take as many as you need. There might be a possibility that you will have to take as many as you need for the attorneys, the stenographer, and the person that is being deposed. But at least you have to take one for the person that is going to speak in the foreign language, and a transmitter for you to be able to talk to that person. The next thing I would ask you to do is, so that the person can hear you, the receiver has to have some headset. I would advise against taking your own headphones or headsets. Ask them to take their own. These are really cheap, so ask them to take the ones that they use for their cellular phone, or that they use for any other thing, the radio or whatever it is. And just in case, carry with you some really cheap ones. These are some of those that you get on the airplane for free when you get on the plane. So instead of throwing them away, keep them from now on. Look in your home, look in your suitcase. You might have some floating around, and just take them. The reason is because after they use it, you're gonna throw it away. Of course, if they want to take their noise canceling Bose, as long as they can fit in here, they are free to do whatever they want. As far as you, I would suggest that, so that it's easier for the person you're interpreting for to hear you and understand you, besides your transmitter, you take a microphone, and you can take either one of these that you put around your neck, or one of those that you put on your lapel. That helps you quite a bit, and you don't have to force your voice that much. Now, if you're doing this for everybody, then it's even better, because you can speak on a lower voice. Another way that this can be done, if you're going to use this device only for the person that speaks the foreign language, or if your equipment does not allow for two different channels, one for English for everybody else and one for the foreign language that you're interpreting into, in my case Spanish, then there are other ways to do this. You can ask them to use the PA system or the microphones that they have in the board meeting. Most board meetings have microphones, so just ask everybody to turn the microphone on when they ask a question, and you get a microphone near you so that you can interpret consecutively the answers from the person that is being deposed. The questions, by the way, you can do it consecutively or simultaneously, since you're going to have the portable equipment. Next, if they don't have this system, which, by the way, I generally use when I see it, and the court reporters love it because they usually don't think about that, but that makes it much easier for them also to hear. The next thing that you can do, if this is not available, is you ask them to use the speakerphone. They can put the speakerphone in the center of the table, and they can give you another phone, and you can use the other phone to speak into the phone from the corner where you are sitting, and everybody can hear you that way. The last option, and it's an acceptable one too, because these are board rooms, it's not a dumb stadium or anything like that, is that you can just speak on a very loud voice without taking the mask off, and everybody will have to hear it. Try to address the stenographer directly so that he or she has no problem keeping the record. That's how I would do it. I would not get near anybody else, because that's way too risky. And the client will most likely understand if you explain it to them this way, if you show good faith by taking all this equipment. And by the way, before I forget, the transmitter, you take it in a Ziploc bag, you know, a little baggie like this, and you put it in there so that the person that doesn't speak English doesn't have to physically touch the receiver. They can just control the volume and everything else without having to take it out of the bag. They open the bag a little bit, they stick this in there, and then they hear you. That would be the best possible way to do it. Finally, if the client disagrees, they don't want you to do it that way. If you're working through an agency and the agency thinks that it's too much trouble to ask the client for all these things, please just turn down the assignment. It is not worth your life. It is not worth your future. it is just not worth. If they don't want to go through all these things, and if I were them, I wouldn't, then get them just to put them computers up, to get online and do this as distance interpreting. That's the way to go with depositions during this pandemic. Please be safe, take care of your health. That's the most important thing. The most important thing is you, the interpreter. At least that is my opinion. Thank you very much.